Morning, everyone. Thank you for
Hi.
attending. Hi. We'll probably look to start in a few minutes. I'll just give it a little bit to see if anyone else turns up, allow for any latecomers. If anyone would like to introduce themselves, feel free to unmute your mic or put in the chat. It's always lovely to see where people are based, what partner you're at, just for me to get an idea of how many people we have across the world in much more exotic locations than London. Hello, Tim. Hong Kong is definitely more exciting than London, at least to me. I'm going to guess that for a lot of you, this will be the end of the day rather than the start of the day, like it is for me. In which case, thank you very much for spending the end of your day with me. Hopefully, it will be helpful. Nairobi, also very exciting. If you guys want to invite me over at any point for a visit, I'd be delighted with that. Hong Kong or Nairobi, I'll take either. Yeah, it's Happy Lunar New Year. That's a very good point, Sarah. Thank you. I didn't realize that it was Lunar New Year when we originally set these meetings up. So I will try my best not to keep you too long for those of you who are celebrating. I'll just give it another minute or so and then we will get started. Just to note, we are recording this meeting. So if you do want to unmute at any point and ask any questions or contribute, then that would be great. But then obviously that will be on the recording just so that everybody is aware of that. And then obviously the recording will be made available to you afterwards. And please feel free to share it with any colleagues as well if that is helpful. A couple of people from Vietnam as well, lovely. I feel like this is just giving me a wish list of places to go to right now. Okay, well, in the interests of not keeping you all from your evenings, for those of you whose evening it is already, I guess we will get started, and then any latecomers can just trickle in at that point. Um, so thank you for attending. This is the first in a trio of workshops that we're running over the next 3 weeks, so one a week for the next 3 weeks. And that's directly in response to feedback from partner staff who asked for these workshops. So today's workshop, we're talking about finding resources and using the University of Greenwich online library. Next week, we'll be talking about reference management software. So things like Mendeley, for example. And then the week after that, we will be talking about the ethical use of generative AI and how you can talk to your students about that to make sure that they are kind of doing that in the correct way that's in line with university guidelines. So I hope that I will see all of you at all three of those sessions. But like I said, we will be recording all of the sessions and we will make those recordings available as well as the slides afterwards. So if you can't attend any, then we will absolutely be sharing those, and the partnerships office will be sharing all the links to those afterwards. If anyone has any questions at any point, please do feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask them, or raise your virtual hand. Anyway, basically, I'm very happy for you to do so. Hopefully a lot of you know me already, but for those of you that don't, my name is Laura Newman. I am the Library Education and Partnerships Manager at the University of Greenwich. So that essentially means that for any of the kind of library related queries, I am the person who manages that for partners. So that can be anything to do with accessing our resources, finding out what we have available, helping with skills training for you or for your colleagues or for your students, doing student support. So I work in the academic and digital skills team. We provide training for students on academic and digital skills, says it in the name. And obviously we are very happy to do that for partners as well. So again, you can always let me know if there's a session you would like running for your students, and obviously we could arrange that. Okay, so I will get started without any more ado. But like I said, if you have any questions at any point, please do just ask. I'm very happy to be interrupted at any point. I'm hoping that everyone can see my screen at this point. Please let me know if you can't.
Yes, we can see.
Lovely, thank you so much. Okay, so like I said, today's session, we're just going to be talking about finding resources at the University of Greenwich Library. If anyone already knows this, or you want to ask about something specific or cover something specific, please do interrupt me at any point. I'm not going to be upset about going away from the slides. We're starting pretty basic, and then we'll get a little bit more advanced. So we're just going to be looking initially at reminding you of the basics. So hopefully a lot of you know this already, but in case any of you are new. So we'll just be looking at how to access them initially. So looking at the portal, the affiliate accounts, and MFA. Then we'll be looking at a couple of specific systems that you can use, how you might differentiate between those, because it's not always obvious, to be honest. We'll have a look at LibGuides briefly, because we think those are a really good place to point students towards as a one-stop shop. We'll be looking a little bit about how to search effectively when you're looking at those resources and those databases. And like I said, any questions at any point, please do let me know. I would rather this is useful for you than just me rabbiting on about things that I think will be useful, if that makes sense. Also, apologies, I've got two screens, so I'm sort of half looking at you and half looking at my other screen. So that's probably why I look a little bit weird. Okay, so starter question. Does anyone want to share in the chat or verbally how much you use the resources? So do you use them for yourself at all? Do you use them for your research, for when you are planning any lessons, for example? Or do you just point your students towards them? And do you know if your students are using them? So can you see when you are marking their assessments, for example, that they are using academic references that they would have got from the Greenwich Library? Is anyone aware of that, or are we all just hoping for the best that people are using it? I think this will presumably be a little different depending on your discipline. So I know some of our business colleagues, you will of course be using some of the very specific databases, like the financial and markets software. So I assume your students will definitely be using those. For other disciplines, it may be less specific, or they may be able to find more things that are available freely online, for example. So I think we could absolutely have a look at how useful that might be. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Laura. There are some
Yeah.
some messages in the chat.
Oh, great, Yue. Thank you. Oh, Syragis, I do not know how you got this. I mean, if you're a PhD student, then by all means, you are welcome to stay if you're teaching as well. Otherwise, it is probably more relevant to staff than it is for students, yes. Tran, you use it to look up some of the books. Okay, excellent. So you're already using it to look for stuff from the reading lists. I think that's what a lot of the students will be doing as well, to be honest. And Fajila, oh, you're doing a PhD as well as teaching. Wow, that's impressive. Um, well, that's good. So this is like hopefully doubly useful for you then. So you can use it for yourself and also for your students. Okay, so that's good to know that at least some of you are aware of the resources and you are using it already. So hopefully in that case, some of you will already know the basics of how we access these things. So everything at Greenwich, as you probably know, is accessed through the portal. So everybody has to access everything through the portal. That's obviously for security reasons. So everyone should already have access to that. You will also need to be using MFA, so multi-factor authentication. For most people, that will be the Authenticator app that you have on your phone. For partner staff, you will all need to be accessing that through an affiliate account. So if you're a new member of staff and you don't have access to the portal, it's very important that you apply for an affiliate account so that you can then access all of that and you can see Moodle, you can see the online library, you can see all of the policies and guidance and everything else that you need and also that you want to be able to help your students with. And obviously staff and students access these slightly differently. Hopefully this is all familiar territory to everyone so far. So if anyone doesn't have an affiliate account, then please do make sure that you apply for it. Like I said, we'll be sharing all these slides afterwards. This is just the way in which you get access to the Greenwich systems. Students will automatically be given access when they register as a Greenwich student. But for partner staff, you will need to specifically apply to get access. So all the details are there. I'm not going to go through that because I'm hoping most of you already have that access already, and I don't want to go over it. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or also you can email me, and I would be happy to help. So like I said, MFA will normally be the Microsoft Authenticator app. You do have to do this. Again, it's for information security to make sure that you are who you say you are, I suppose, when you log into the university systems. And we all have to do this. So everyone has to have MFA set up. It's really important. So again, if you don't have that or you're a new member of staff or your students are struggling with that, please just make sure you're pointing them towards the correct help pages. So again, I have put a link in there for you, which hopefully will be useful. But I'm not going to belabor the point. Okay, so in terms of the library, for staff, everything can be found in the learning support section of the portal. So that will give you all of the relevant links that you need. So you can see there on the screen on the right, We've got search the library. We're going to go through a couple of those links in a little bit. And then down the bottom, we've also got library support and we've got academic support here as well. So these are pretty much all the links that you as staff will need, but also all the links that you might want to point your students towards to make sure that they are also getting all the support that they need. For students, it will look slightly different. So rather than learning support, they have a section that's called My Learning. So you can see up the top here, My Learning. And theirs will therefore look slightly different. So, accidentally did that. So again, you can see there, they've got the same boxes on that page. They're just slightly different. So you should still have that. Oh, Fajilla, you... Let me just have a look at that for you. Fajilla, are you at a TNE partner, an international partner, or a UK partner? Because it will differ slightly for the international partners and for the UK partners. The international partners staff should have access to all of this. If you don't, then I would suggest sending a ticket to IT because it might be that your affiliate access account was set up slightly wrong, in which case they'll be able to fix that.
Okay, so I have to email to, I need to generate the ticket then.
Yeah, so I would raise a ticket with IT, yeah, and
Okay.
just say that you don't have access to these bits, and they should be able to just edit your access so that you have that, because you should have access to that. So everyone should be able to access that because, again, obviously you need to be able to see similar things to what your students can see. So again, the access between staff and students does differ slightly, which is very unhelpful. We're aware of that. But you should at least be able to have an idea of what your students are able to look at. And obviously we're going to go through a little bit of that today. Oh, clicked off the page. Okay, so like I said, we're going to have a look at a couple of these systems just to kind of point out the differences between them. So at this point, I'm going to just go into the portal because I think it's easier to show you. So in the portal, so like I said, I'm on the staff portal. I'm in the learning support section. And then in this search the library section here, I'm going to click onto library search. So library search is our discovery system. What that means is it's essentially a search engine. So it's similar to Google or Bing or anything like that. So it searches a large amount of the resources that the university is subscribing to. It doesn't quite search all of them. It's not perfect, but it will search a large amount of them. So library search can be useful for a couple of things. So when you click on library search, first thing you can click on is this link here to Publication Finder. And this is available for what we call title level searching. So what this means is if you know the title of something, so Tran, you were saying earlier that you search for books from like reading lists for modules, for example. This is where I would say use Publication Finder. You already know the name of the book, so you might just want to search for that, and then it will come up with that. And this is where I did have an example, but obviously I've clicked off the PowerPoint here. Typical. Chaos in action. Okay, so you can see here, so that's the exact title of a book. I've just copy and pasted that in there. And you can see it immediately comes up with the book that I want, and it comes up with the link to the ebook. So I can then click on that and it will take me in, except it's asking me to log in, which I'm not going to do right now because I can't be bothered. But you can see that's really, really simple. So for anything that is on a reading list or that you know is a reading you will need for a particular module, for an assignment that your students will need. So if you're saying to them, for this assignment, you need to read this book or you need to read this journal, for example, Publication Finder is the best place to go. It's the simplest one. It works very quickly and very easily. So that would be my recommendation. For where you know the title of something, go to Publication Finder. If we go back to Library Search, you'll have seen on that front page, we also have a link here to Digital Resources Search. So if I click on that, this is where it's searching a very large amount of our online databases. Typical, isn't it? I logged in before I started this webinar, and yet it is not working. Of course, it's logged me out. Oh, here we go. Look, MFA in action right here. See, we all have to do it. Just going to do that very quickly. I don't know why it always does this when you're recording something. Okay, so digital resources search. I feel like the computer is against me today, if I'm honest. The systems are against me. The machines are winning. So digital resources search searches across a large amount of our collections. So as most of you know, the library has collections from a huge range of sources. So we have them from different publishers, from different platforms, from different journals and newspapers and multimedia sources. And all of those are a huge range. So that's probably, I don't know, well over 100 different places, which is a lot of different places to search if you don't really know what you're looking for. And this is where digital resources search comes in. So it will search across a lot of these for you. So it's one search engine that searches across a lot of different platforms. So for digital resources search, we would say the best way to search this is for a topic. So something you are interested in, something that maybe your students have an assignment about, but not something where you're searching for a specific resource. So when we looked at Publication Finder, we looked for a specific book, global entrepreneurship and innovation. Okay. If I wanted to search on that topic, I could, I don't know why I picked entrepreneurship when that's such a hard word to spell. Entrepreneurship and innovation, let's say. So that's a general topic I want some information about. And then you can see it's coming up with lots of different things. Now, obviously, that's a very general topic. So you can see it's coming up with here 100,000 results. Now, that's a lot of results. And obviously, not all of those will be helpful to you. But this is where it's really good for students who are doing some independent research. So we would say using digital resources search is particularly helpful for first year students, where it's just one easy place for them to search, for them to get an idea of what information is available around their topic or what kind of things they might want to start looking at for their assignment, for example. Once they start developing more, so once they move into second year and third year, we would say maybe they want to start looking at specific databases, which they'll get to learn. But for first years, this is a really nice, easy place to point them towards. It's not too overwhelming. It can give them some really good information. So I think that should be that would be my advice, is that particularly for your new students, so whether that is first year undergrad students or first year postgrad students, I would say it's a nice, easy place to point them towards for their first assignments. So when they want to get an idea of what information there is about a topic, point them towards the digital resources search. I can see, Tran, that you are also having issues. See, I'm telling you, the systems are against us today. I don't know what is wrong with them. I would try maybe trying a different browser and see if that works. And if not, again, I would then send a ticket to IT. I realize that sounds like I'm just copying out and palming everything off on IT, but I'm not an IT person, and therefore my strengths in this area are limited, if I'm honest. Generally, I'd say a different browser helps, though. If you're finding issues, then trying a different browser quite often fixes them. Okay, so we've done our initial search. We can see that's got us 100,000 results, which obviously is a lot. So you can see up here we have some filters. And again, I would say if you or your students are using this, the easiest way to do that would be to do that initial search and then to try and filter it down a little bit. So if we said in this case, we were looking for some journal articles, I'm just going to show you everything that is available here. So you can see all the different types of information. So if we said we were looking for journal articles, for example, let's restrict it to that. And then we might say, well, we want to make sure they're really high quality. So we want them to be peer-reviewed journal articles. Okay, now obviously that's a generalization. It's not to say that journal articles that aren't peer-reviewed aren't high quality. But generally we can assume that if they are peer-reviewed, it does mean they are high quality. So again, that can be quite an easy way of restricting a search and helping to narrow it down so that it's less overwhelming for students in terms of the results. And then the last easy one that we could filter there, I would say, is the date range. So if we're looking at journal articles, most of the time that means we want the most up-to-date information or research. So in this case, I'm going to say I only want things that are a year old because I want the most up-to-date information about entrepreneurship and innovation. So you can see just by me filtering by those three things, so the source type, making it peer-reviewed, and then doing the date range, we've gone from 100,000 to 6,000. Now that's pretty good for just like a minute's worth of work. And again, this is where I'd say digital resources search is really good, particularly for those new students who might be finding it overwhelming, who may not be used to doing their own research, for example. So this is a nice kind of easy way into independent research, I would say. And obviously then there are other ways you could restrict that further. So you could add additional search terms, for example. So, you know, in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation, I could add a search term about a particular sector, for example. So entrepreneurship and innovation in, I don't know, pharmaceutical science, for example, or marine biology, right? Or I could do it in particular types of businesses, so SMEs, for example. So there's other ways you can help narrow that down. But initially, that's pretty good, I think. We've got rid of a lot of results there. And then obviously anything that they find, they should be able to just click on that, click on full text finder. Just going to ignore the EBSCO annoying screens, which are not working. And apparently this is also not really working. Helpful. See, I'm telling you, the tech. The tech is against me. There we go, finally. So then you can see it will take you into the article, and then all of these, either the students can read them online or they should have the option to download it as a PDF. We would recommend, again, that anything that you are looking at, so either you or your students, through the university when you're doing any research, whenever you find something, you save it. So that might be that you download the PDF and save it to your laptop, your OneDrive, whatever it is you're using. Or that might mean that you save things in your library search account. So you can save things within your library search account as well if you want to. Either way, I just recommend that you do that because it makes it easier to come back and find it again. There's nothing worse than doing some research, finding some really good things, and then losing them and not being able to find them again. So save as you go along because you can always delete things. But if you don't save it, it's really hard to find it again sometimes. So that would be my advice, is just to make sure you're doing that. Okay, in terms of library search, is that all pretty clear? Does anyone have any questions on that while I go back to the PowerPoint and figure out where we are next? Okay, I'm going to assume that no one has any questions on that. Okay, so like I said, that's the basics of searching. That's where we would start with, and that's where I would encourage you to talk to your students about starting if they haven't already. So next is about accessing some of the support. So like I said at the start, I work in the academic and digital skills team, and we run workshops throughout the year for students around a whole different gamut of skills that they can look to improve on. So this might be anything from academic writing, how to write an essay, how to write a report, critical thinking, evaluation of sources, referencing, digital capabilities such as using Microsoft Office, for example. So there's a lot of different workshops that are available there. Pretty much all of them are online. So again, we would recommend that if you're finding your students are struggling with anything, so if you're talking to them and they don't really know how to reference, right? So they've never done referencing before, they're really confused by it. Or they don't know how to write a business report, or they are struggling with what to do about using generative AI, anything like that, we would recommend that you point them towards LibCal. So this is our online calendar of events and workshops. And like I said, your students can sign up to any of these. So they can register for them. I know obviously with a lot of you who are based very far ahead of us in the time zone, so those of you in Hong Kong, Vietnam, etc., these workshops may be quite late for your students. What I would recommend is that you get them to sign up. They don't have to attend it live, but they will be recorded, and then they can get the recording and watch that in their own time, rather than trying to attend a workshop that's on at, 10 o'clock at night for them, which obviously is not ideal. So point them towards LibCal would be my advice. Make use of it. Again, if you're looking at their assignments and you're finding they're weak in a particular skill, maybe say to them, you need to work on this. Why don't you go and see if there's a workshop you can attend? Because again, those workshops are already being run. There's no point in you duplicating the work. So we would recommend that you point them towards those. And then, like I said earlier, the other thing is LibGuides. So these are library guides. They're all online, and they are very specifically oriented around specific support and information. So again, some of these will be more relevant to different years. You can see here I've put some particularly relevant ones on the screen. So there is one that is for partner students. So obviously that might be relevant to new partners or new students who don't really know how to access things, how things work. That might be a really good starting point for them. You could maybe look at that with them during inductions or orientations. We have a LibGuide about referencing. Again, a lot of students don't really do much referencing before they come to university, and then they struggle with learning that as a skill. So this might be something that's really helpful to them. We have recordings of sessions about particular skills, which again, you might want them to watch, or you might want to point them towards. And we also have subject-specific LibGuides. So again, I'm just going to go back to the portal and show you where this is. So these are under the library support box. So again, staff and students should have access to this. You can see the LibGuides link if I link onto that. So you can see there's a huge amount of different options here. So you can see under academic support, a huge range of different library guides there that might be helpful. So the partner one, like I said, the videos, so those are recordings of different sessions, assessment support, for example. For new students, there's a library guide, referencing, etc., etc. So again, you might want to have a look through those, see if any of those are helpful to signpost on your Moodle pages to students. And then we have our subject guides. So this is where I was saying earlier that students who are in second or third year may start to sort of develop towards looking at specific databases rather than just using digital resources search all the time. And this is one of the ways in which they can do that. So the subject guides are subject specific, obviously. So you can see here we have all the different subjects which we are supporting and teaching at Greenwich. And we can see all of the different ones. So I'm just going to click on engineering as an example. So you can see here, this has very specific information for engineering students. The most relevant one here being the subject databases. So if I click on that, you can see it is listing the specific databases that will be helpful for construction students. Okay, so this is helping to sort of narrow down where they might want to be looking. Now, the benefit of looking at these specific databases is that, like I said earlier, digital resources search and publication finder will not find everything. So they find quite a lot of the information that we are subscribing to, but they won't find all of it. And obviously, as students are progressing through their courses, we want them to become more expert level researchers. So we want them to look at multiple places. We want them to find the information that's harder to find originally. So them looking at these databases is a really good way of them developing their skills. And again, you can see that any of these you can just click into. So if I click on Web of Science, for example, then it will not let me in. Good to know. Okay, let's try a different one rather than do that. Oh, I'm telling you, I don't know why nothing will work for me properly. It's normally easier than this, I promise. I don't know if it's because I've been out of the office for a couple of days, and so apparently the systems have all decided that I don't actually exist as a Greenwich member of staff anymore. Let's try this one, shall we? There we go. See, that's what it's supposed to do, is that you click on it and then it just goes in, which is what we wanted, right? So again, you can see all these databases will obviously look different because they're all from different providers, but they will all fundamentally work in a similar way to how we looked at digital resources search. So that is that you might do an initial search and then you might add some filters. So again, you can see here they've got the year range, for example. And they'll have other filters as you do those. So that's the important thing to bear in mind. And that's actually what we're going to have a look at now, is some of those kind of tips and ways in which you can talk to your students, and obviously use for yourselves as well, ways in which to search effectively. So again, for you as staff, you will have slightly different access to your students. So the best place for you to look at this, ooh, we're all going forward, is the eResources Access Library Guide. I'm hoping everybody already knows this. So again, you can access this through the library guides. So under collections, there's an eResources one. And you can see here the summary of access rights. If I click on that and then click to open the full PDF, this will tell you exactly which ones you have access to. So again, for anyone who is doing their own research, doing your PhD, you may want to have a look at which of these databases you have access to, and then search in the ones that are relevant to your particular subject area or area of research. And like I said, this will differ slightly. So your students may have access to some databases that you don't. But obviously you can still point them towards using them. So this is a really good place to look at. And then, like I said, we're just going to have a look at some of the more kind of generic ways in which you can be more effective in that searching, which is applicable across pretty much all of the platforms. And therefore, even if you don't know the specific database, you can still help your students with how to use it more efficiently. So this is actually a good reminder that I've just been casually throwing the word database out quite a lot, and I don't actually know if everyone knows what a database is. So the databases are just collections of research, essentially. And like I said, those will be, some of them will be very subject specific, some of them are more broad and overarching and general. But we have access to a huge range of these. A lot of these will be academic research, so journal articles, books, literature reviews, things like that. Some of them will be industry specific, so for business. Some of those will be financial and markets data, or mergers and acquisitions data, for example. For things like construction, that might be like industry standards. Then there's also multimedia data, so you can access videos, TV programs. There's also newspaper ones that you can access with like world newspapers and world magazines. So there's a huge range of different databases. And like I said, these will very much vary in terms of what you have access to, what your students have access to, and how they might be useful to you. But we would expect students, as I said, particularly as they progress through their degrees, to start using these a lot more and to start showing that kind of breadth of research. So if we looked at carrying out a search, like I said, these are some fairly kind of general tips that you might want to use just to make the searching more effective. So one is that we would say databases don't work the same way as a normal search engine or as an AI model, for example. So in a search engine, or if you were using ChatGPT or Copilot, you might just type in a sentence, right? So show me these things, or what is the meaning of this? Help me find this thing. So that's natural language, right? You would naturally ask a question in that way. When you're using databases, they don't really work like that. So they use instead keywords, or the best way to search them is with keywords. So that's identifying the specific parts of a topic or an assignment question that are most relevant. So we'd say the first tip is always break it down into keywords. Second is to then look at using alternative keywords. So think about different ways in which you might describe the same thing, because obviously everybody has different vocabulary and different language. And therefore, if you just use one word for something, you're probably not getting all the research that exists around that subject. Like we already did on digital resources search, use those filters. You saw how helpful they were. We went from 100,000 down to 6,000 very quickly. So that's a really good way of just making sure your research is more specific to what you're actually looking for and more helpful. Use the smart features. So a lot of the databases will have like links to related articles or linked citations. And obviously those will be on similar topics, which can also be really useful. And like I said, save as you go along. Very, very important. Okay, so if we're looking at those keywords, like I said, you might want to look at your assignment title, or look with your students at your assignment titles and look at breaking it down. So keywords might be things like concepts or ideas, different people or demographics that you're looking at, particular events or issues that you're researching. And so a way in which you might do this is by looking at an assignment title. So I've just put an assignment title. So Lam, you should be able to access the online databases link. If you can't, again, I would say that is something that is wrong with your affiliate access. So if you raise a ticket with IT, they should be able to fix that. You should be able to access a list of databases. Yeah, so if it's saying that, it's probably because your affiliate account has not been set up properly. So everything, the way in which your affiliate account is set up affects everything that you can access through the portal. So if anything is wrong with the portal, then it will likely be through that. You can also try just logging into the portal, and then you could just try accessing some of the databases individually through the libguides, for example, see if it works that way. But it may just, you should be able to access the list, but like I said, you won't be able to access every single database because the access does differ according to partner staff and partner students, as well as Greenwich staff and Greenwich students. I know it's very complicated and not ideal, and unfortunately is completely out of our control because it's to do with licenses. So those are set by the publishers and we have no control over those, unfortunately. So I would recommend that you contact IT and hopefully they will be able to help. So if we look at this assignment title, analyze the importance of study skills at university. Obviously, not all of those are the keywords, right? So in terms of the keywords, does anyone have any ideas of what those might be? Okay, so remember we're looking at concepts, issues, study skills. Yes, exactly. Yep, university. Excellent. Yeah, so in this case, we might kind of break down the assignment a little bit. So the instruction, so what are you being told to do, or what are your students being told to do there? We might look at opinions or point of views, and we might look at the actual keywords that we're actually trying to find. So in this case, the instruction is analyze, right? So that's what your students are being told to do. They don't need to search for that. That's a skill they will have to apply to the research. So importance, that's a point of view. So how important something is, again, not something they need to search for. That's again, them using their judgment when they have the research. So the actual keywords, like UA and Daniel said, excuse me, are study skills and university. Those are the topics that we are interested in. That's what we're actually searching for. So rather than putting that entire topic, that entire title into a database, we would just search for those two topics. Okay, in the same way that when I searched digital resources earlier, I just used those two concepts I was searching for. And then we might look at alternative keywords. So we might look at some broader ways of describing those or narrower ways. We might look at different synonyms or different spellings, for example. And this way, like I said, is just developing knowledge around the topic. It's allowing you to search more broadly, which then can give you a better range of results. So, for example, if we were looking again at those two keywords, are there any alternatives we could use for those? So, are there any other ways of describing study skills or university? Yeah, so learning or college, thank you, Ewan. Higher education, yeah. Yeah, and so this is where you can put some thought into this yourself, or you could make use of a tool. So you could use an online thesaurus. You could use Gen AI. You could say to ChatGPT, what's another way of describing study skills? Or what's another way of saying university? And it will give you some options, which you can then use to do your research. So you don't have to do all of this yourself. You should absolutely make use of the tools that are available. So yeah, in this case, we might say things like, instead of study skills, we might narrow those down into specific types of study skills. So reading, writing, time management, etc. For university, we might say things like college or higher education. We might put it into different types of courses, so undergraduate, postgraduate. So there's lots of different ways of describing the same thing, right? If you only search for that one thing, you're probably going to miss some research, which could actually be really helpful. It's just used different vocabulary than you have. So this is always what we would say would be step 2 when you're thinking about searching. So firstly, break it down into your keywords. Secondly, find some alternatives. And then obviously, when you start doing the search, like we already looked at, think about using those filters. So the date range. So how up to date do you need it to be? Or are you looking at something historical, in which case you need it to be much older? What type of content are you looking for? You might look at things like languages. You might look at source. So where is it coming from? And you can generally find these. So on digital resources searches, you saw they were at the top, but a lot of them will be in a left-hand column on a lot of the databases. So again, all of these skills you can apply to multiple different platforms. It's just that the interface will look slightly different, that's all. And then you might think about things like phrase searching. So this is where you're searching for 2 or more words that you use as a phrase. So you don't want them searched as individual words, you want them searched as one thing. And this is where you might use quotation marks around this phrase. All that does is it's just coding for the database, for the search engine, and it just shows it that you want it to search that as a phrase. So time management, for example, if we put that in quotation marks, it knows we're searching for time management. If we don't put it in quotation marks, it will search for time, it will search for management, and it will also search for time management. So a lot more of those results will be irrelevant to you, which obviously will not be that helpful. So that's just another really quick and easy way that you can reduce down your results and get them to be more specific. And it feels slightly abrupt there. But in the interest of time, I'm aware we only have 5 minutes left. So I will stop there. Like I said, these are just some very kind of broad tips, but you can apply those across the board. So you might want to look at doing those in digital resources search. You could do those in the database. So for example, here, I could put those quotation marks and do a search for a phrase. In fact, let's do that, shall we? Since it's suggesting artificial intelligence. So I can search for that. And then you can see, like I said, there's a lot of filters down the left-hand side here. And that will be the case in a lot of the databases. Obviously, like I said, they'll all look slightly different, but most of them you will be able to do that. Some of them will have these particular categories where you can limit. So yes, I want those included, but you can also exclude things. So I don't want those included. Some of them will just have the limits. So I just want these things included. It won't allow you to also exclude. But like I said, these are applicable across the board. So I would encourage you to start using those for your own research, for your PhD, for anything that you are doing for yourself or for your own studies. But then I'd also encourage you to talk to your students about doing this. So like I said, this is all about supporting the students, making sure that they have these skills as well. And you can also, like I said, get in touch with me if you feel like your students would benefit from having a session. So whether that's just a quick sort of half-hour online session about how to access the resources, or like search tips like this, please do get in touch, and either myself or someone from my team would be very happy to help you. I'm going to stop sharing there. Does anyone have any questions? Surges, you have your hand up. Yes, so these sessions are recorded. We will obviously provide the recordings afterwards. So on the LibGuide, let me show you that quickly, Surges. You can... So we don't have all of them because obviously we run a lot of workshops and we don't really have anywhere to host those, to be honest. But we do have, so under the academic support one, we've got academic and digital skills team videos. If I go to that, you can see we've kind of got the most commonly requested ones that are recordings, which you can access through there. So you can see there we've got the kind of the most common topics, which, so if I clicked on finding information for your assignment, you can see that there's several different videos down there. Oh, I can hear noise from someone, but I don't know whether you're deliberately talking or not. Oh, of course I'm not sharing the screen. I'm so sorry. Rookie error there. Here we go. Let me just share quickly, and then I will also put the URL in there for you. So you can see here the videos that we have on there. So I've clicked on finding information for your assignment. And then you can see here we've got a variety of different videos, all of which are publicly available. So all staff and students and partners can access all of those. You can see there's quite a lot that are on there. Some of them are really short, some of them are like longer workshops. So for anything that you've missed, I'd recommend having a look there. And then, like I said, you can also have a look at any upcoming workshops, register for them. And then, like I said, you don't actually have to attend them live. You could just register and then you get access to the recording afterwards if they're at a difficult time for you. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I hope that was useful for you. Like I said, we're running the next workshop, same time next Tuesday, and that will be about reference management software. Please do attend if you're able and you're interested. And I will hope to see you then. Otherwise, I will let you get on with your days/evenings, depending on what time zone that you are in. And I will end the recording now. Thank you very much. I'll be around for another 5 minutes or so if anyone has any questions, just to say quickly. And we'll send the slides and the recordings round as soon as we can, as soon as we get those sorted.
Thank you.
Thank you.